It is the final stretch of a busy term for the U.S. Supreme Court. With cases still pending, the High Court has more and more become wrapped up in President Trump's emergency appeals. As for the president, the state of Washington this week joined yet another multi-state lawsuit against the Trump administration. Joining us to break it all down is Erin Carr, Associate Professor of Law at Seattle University. Professor, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here. It's been another eventful week.
So much happened this week. Let's just start with the fact that Washington State has now joined with 15 others that $1.4 billion suit challenging the federal cuts to the National Science Foundation. Explain the legal grounds for us and why it is significant for universities, for research institutions here in Washington.
Yeah, so Washington, as you noted, is one of 16 states that has recently filed suit against the federal government, and in doing so has asserted that the administration has improperly eliminated congressionally appropriated federal funding to support critical scientific research. The coalition of states that are challenging the elimination of research grants administered by the National Science Foundation argue that not only will these significant cuts negatively affect countless important research initiatives being led by colleges and universities in their states, but that there are also broader ramifications to the administration's unilateral actions to slash scientific research grants, and that it will additionally harm the United States' position as a global leader in science and technology.
And Washington voters may not think that federal science policy actually impacts them. Why should Washington voters care about this lawsuit?
So the human and financial cost of purging billions of dollars in federal investments in scientific research are neither theoretical nor speculative. The National Science Foundation, which has maintained bipartisan support since its inception in the 1950s, is currently responsible for administering $9 billion in federal funding that supports over 1,700 research grants. And much of the technological and scientific innovations that the National Science Foundation has been involved in spearheading are things that directly benefit each and every one of us in our day-to-day lives. The NSF has funded a broad range of research, including contributing to early research that has led to the development of the internet, of smartphone and artificial intelligence technology, improved scientific models for forecasting weather events, and pioneering medical research that has resulted in innumerable medical breakthroughs. And it's for that reason that the National Science Foundation has been recognized as a reliable engine for medical and scientific innovation that has long produced significant returns on investment that have yielded greater health, environmental, and economic outcomes for communities across the United States.
The Supreme Court also today allowed the Trump administration to end deportation protections. We're talking about this impacting more than 500,000 immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela. What does that signal about the court's approach to sort of emergency immigration cases? What does this mean?
This is another significant decision once again being rendered on the court's emergency docket. And the decision earlier today to temporarily pause a humanitarian program that is intended to give temporary residency to immigrants from countries facing war and political turmoil is broadly consistent with the emergency order that we discussed last week, similarly permitting the administration to rescind protective status for Venezuelan nationals. I think the fact that once again the Supreme Court has overturned a temporary lower court injunction requiring the government to maintain humanitarian protections for immigrants fleeing political and civil unrest suggests that at least at this early juncture in the case, a majority of the justices on the court are receptive to the arguments of the administration and believe that the administration could ultimately prevail on the merits.
We have about a minute left. Dissenting judges warned of devastation and needless human suffering as a result of this ruling. What are the real-world impacts for families across our state because of this?
They're not insignificant. Migrants, including many of our community members who have been vetted and authorized to remain in the country under the federal humanitarian parole program, have effectively lost their ability to remain lawfully in the United States unless they qualify for another protective status, such as asylum, which under the current administration is also becoming increasingly more difficult to access.
Professor Carr, we'll have you back again next week because there, again, is just so much to cover. We appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Joyce.